Today, I will be sharing with you an amazing story. So make sure to stay tuned until the end of the video. They built 35 houses on my property. So when I got the call from my lawyer that there were people building houses on my property, I assumed that he was joking around. However, it turned out that he was absolutely serious. This is why I decided to take matters into my own hands. And what happened next was even more shocking. He didn't check the zoning laws before selling the property to me, and he also failed to inform me that the piece of land I was buying had already been sold multiple times. This meant that each of those 35 people believed they owned a piece of my property, and they were free to build whatever they wanted there. Many of those houses had already been occupied by families for years, and they were not about to leave without a fight. I reached out to the local officials and explained my situation. They were sympathetic to my cause and agreed to help me. They agreed to leave peacefully if we helped them find alternative accommodation. We found apartments for them to rent and gave them time to pack up and move out. Some of them tried to appeal the decision, while others simply refused to cooperate. It all began when I purchased a large plot of land in Arizona. But now, I needed to do something about it. I hired a lawyer and we started investigating. It was a place where I felt safe and comfortable. And now, it had been violated by criminals. It was a long and difficult process. But eventually, we were able to clear out most of the houses. I decided to rebuild and make my house even stronger than before. I felt like I was trapped in my own home. Then I remembered that my neighbor had mentioned having a security camera. I rushed over to his house and asked him to check the footage. I started noticing strange cars driving around my neighborhood. I saw suspicious-looking men loitering near my house. I even caught them trying to break into my garage. Make sure you have a reliable security system in place and check your insurance policies to ensure that you are covered in the event of a disaster. Rebuilding your home is possible, and there is help available. Don't give up hope. Also, don't hesitate to reach out to your local police department for help. Please subscribe for more interesting stories like this one. See you in the next video. They may be able to provide you with additional resources or assistance. He immediately called the police, and soon enough, the intruder was arrested. I knew that I had taken all the necessary precautions to keep myself and my family safe. I hired a security company to install cameras and an alarm system. I reinforced the doors and windows, and I even hired a private investigator to watch over my property. However, there were still a few holdouts. These were people who had nowhere else to go, and they were clinging to their homes for dear life. But despite all the challenges, I loved my home. It was a place where I could relax and feel safe. That's why it's important to be aware of your surroundings and take the necessary precautions to protect yourself. But I'm also grateful for the support of my neighbors and the justice that was ultimately served. It was a place where I could raise a family and create lasting memories. I had to demolish the remaining houses and clear away the debris. Then I needed to decide what to do with the land. We soon found out that the only way to solve this problem was to go to court. I wanted to build my dream house there, but I had no idea that other people had the same plan in mind. The problem was that they had not followed the proper procedures for subdividing the land. I had already had enough of living in a neighborhood full of drama. So I decided to turn my property into a park. I donated the land to the city, and they quickly got to work on turning it into a beautiful green space for everyone to enjoy. The front door was smashed, and my entire living room was destroyed. I immediately called the police, but they told me that they wouldn't be able to come out for at least an hour. I felt helpless and scared. All I could do was wait and hope that the police would catch the intruders. Before they caused any more damage, they had not obtained the necessary permits or approvals from the local authorities, and as a result, each sale was illegal. How could someone buy my property and not even live on it? The answer, as it often does, lay in the paperwork. Soon after I finalized the purchase, I noticed some strange activity on my property. People were surveying the land and marking it off with stakes. Of course, I confronted them, but they told me that they had the legal right to do so because I had sold them the land. Confused, I asked them what they were talking about. That's when they informed me that they had bought my land. As it turned out, my land had been illegally subdivided into small plots and sold to 35 different people. But how could this have happened? The thing is, my real estate agent made a huge mistake. I was shocked and outraged. I couldn't believe that this could happen in the United States of America. In court, it was revealed that my real estate agent had acted on behalf of a group of investors who had bought the land with the intention of reselling it for a profit. The judge ruled in my favor and ordered that all 35 houses be demolished. However, this was easier said than done. I was determined to get my property back, but I knew that I would need the help of the community. So the next step was to evict all the squatters. In the end, we were able to reach an agreement with them. Now that my property was finally clear, it was time to start rebuilding. To be honest, I didn't want to build another house there. It wasn't always easy being a homeowner. There were always repairs to be made, bills to be paid, and problems to be solved. Unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be. One day I came home from work to find my house had been broken into. When they finally arrived, it was too late. My house had been ransacked and many of my belongings were gone. I was devastated. This was my home. But I wasn't going to let this defeat me. Despite all these precautions, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I was terrified. I didn't know what to do. When he reviewed the tapes, he found that one of the men who had been loitering around my house was the same man who had robbed me. From that day on, I never felt unsafe in my home again. However, not everyone is so lucky. There are still millions of homeowners who live in fear of being robbed or harmed in their own homes. I know that I will never forget the feeling of helplessness and fear that I experienced during that home invasion. If you are a homeowner, I urge you to learn from my experience. Most importantly, don't let a disaster define you. That's all for today.